What if you were an archaeologist searching for the mystical Philosopher's Stone, an object said to grant immortality and turn anything into gold? You'd probably be thrilled to discover that it might be buried beneath the Catacombs of Paris. The real problem begins when you realize you're getting dangerously close to a terrifying place known as the Gates of Hell. What would you do in that situation? That's the story of As Above, So Below, a film released in 2014. I'm going to recap it and share the best tips that might have helped these dumb characters survive the underground apocalypse. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more movies like this, and turn that dislike into a like. The film kicks off in Iran, an extremely dangerous country for young Scarlett, who happens to be an archaeologist, biologist, chemist, and a black belt in Krav Maga. And no, I'm not exaggerating. That's literally how the character introduces herself. Scarlett is in a dark place after her father's death, or rather, after he decided to take his own life. Her father was also an archaeologist who spent his life trying to prove that the Philosopher's Stone was real. Everyone mocked him back then, and when he failed to find any evidence, Scarlett's dad tragically ended his own life. Because of this, Scarlett has taken it upon herself to defend her father's honor by continuing his quest for the stone. Her latest research led her to an ancient tomb in Iran, which the government is about to demolish. Racing against time, Scarlett gets help from a local contact who somehow manages to dig a secret tunnel, giving her access to the hidden tomb. She doesn't find the stone itself, but instead stumbles upon the Rose Key, a devilish artifact inscribed with a message that unlocks the translation of a supposedly dead language, one most historians thought was pure myth. Just as she deciphers it, the military blows up the cave. She runs, but suddenly comes face to face with the image of her father hanging from a rope in the middle of a tunnel. Scarlett doesn't have time to process what's happening because the ground is collapsing around her. Miraculously, she escapes through the hidden tunnel and decides to head to Paris. The reason is that the Rose Key's message was written in Aramaic, a language she isn't fluent in. To translate it, she turns to George, an old flame from her past. The problem is, George wants nothing to do with her. Last time they chased the Philosopher's Stone together, he ended up locked up in a Turkish prison while she saved her own skin and left him behind.
Do you know what they do to young boys in prison? You know, those sex-starved convicts just waiting for a fresh piece of meat?
After much insistence, George agrees to help, but makes it clear he'll only translate the message and nothing else. Once the message is decoded, Scarlett realizes it's a clue pointing toward the tomb of Nicholas Flamel, the alchemist who supposedly created the stone. Looking closely at Flamel's tombstone, she notices a carved figure of a man holding a key behind his back. Using her Chemistry for Dummies kit, she reveals a hidden message in Aramaic, which points straight to the catacombs of Paris. For context, in the late 18th century, Paris had a serious problem. Its cemeteries were overflowing. The stench of rotting bodies filled the air, spreading diseases that ironically sent even more people to their graves. To solve this, the government began exhuming corpses and relocating the remains into the underground tunnels of the city, what would eventually become the Paris Catacombs. Today, this site is one of the most popular tourist attractions, but only a small portion is open to the public. After all, with more than 300 miles of tunnels, getting lost is a very real danger. Scarlett, George, and Benji, the cameraman, head there and join a group of tourists. Scarlett checks the coordinates from the tombstone and realizes the stone's location lies behind a wall of bones. The area, however, has been camouflaged so well that no one has ever noticed it. Not knowing how to break through, they're about to give up when a strange Frenchman shows up, casually sketching. He tells them they need the help of a guide named Papillon, who hangs out at a nightclub downtown. Before Scarlett can thank him, the man mysteriously vanishes, something that clearly doesn't follow the laws of physics. This brings us to the first survival tip: pay attention to supernatural signs. Scarlett should have told the others that this was already way too far. How else could a man just disappear like that? It's obvious they're dealing with forces beyond human control. At that point, abandoning the search for the stone would have been the smartest move, but of course, Scarlett doesn't listen to me. The clueless trio heads to the nightclub to find Papillon. At the entrance, a creepy woman locks eyes with Benji, and let's just say it doesn't look like she wants to flirt with him. Soon they meet Papillon, who turns out to be more of a thrill seeker than a professional guy, someone who just loves partying in the catacombs. At first, he refuses to take them, but when Scarlett promises him half the treasure supposedly hidden there, Papillon changes his mind and assembles his team for a descent into hell. His teammates are Zed and Suxi, two French explorers who also enjoy spending time in the Devil's Playground beneath Paris. As they gear up, Benji notices notices a nasty burn on Papillon's hand. Zed quickly warns him not to bring it up since Papillon has some unresolved trauma about it. The not-so-bright group eventually reaches a tunnel that leads into a forbidden area of the Catacombs. The passage is so narrow that George insists this is as far as he'll go. He knows from experience that trusting Scarlet will only end badly for him. Scarlet tries to convince her ex-boyfriend to crawl into the Devil's Tunnel, but persuasion comes instead from a friendly police officer who shows up and tackles Papillon, trying to stop the group from entering. In the middle of the chaos, George gets dragged in against his will, and Papillon shakes off the cop, leading the rest of the clueless crew deeper into the catacombs. One way this whole story could have been avoided would have been if someone on the outside knew about their little trip. That way, if they didn't come back in time, the French police would have been forced to send a search team, maybe even breaking open that cursed tunnel. Another smarter idea? Break the wall around the tunnel and send in a drone. A mid-range drone can fly up to 3 miles, which would have been more than enough to map the area and avoid the whole trapped underground forever problem. As they walk through the corridors, the group runs into a bunch of female cultists who, for some reason, love parading around topless. They're chanting a creepy melody straight out of a Crossroads demon pact. The weirdest part? The cult leader is the same woman who had been staring at Benji in the nightclub earlier. The group obviously tightens up with fear, but Papillon tells them not to worry. Apparently, people of all kinds hang out in the catacombs. Eventually, they reach a dead end, blocked by a wall of stones. Scarlet grabs a rock, ready to smash through, but Papillon refuses. He explains that his old friend, Le Taupe, knew the catacombs like the back of his hand, yet never dared to enter that place. According to him, anyone who went inside never came out. To make things worse, Papillon insists the tunnel itself is evil. 2 years earlier, Le Taupe's curiosity got the better of him, and he foolishly entered the Forbidden Passage. Just like everyone else, he never returned. Papillon insists their only option is a tiny crawl space through piles of bones, and they'll have to squeeze themselves in. The group begins to crawl through, but Benji gets stuck, and panic sets in within seconds. Scarlet tries to help, but Benji flails around in desperation, causing the wall to collapse. Luckily, he makes it through just before the cave-in, but then something impossible happens. The group finds themselves right back in front of the same cursed tunnel as before, as if they'd never crossed the wall of bones. Papillon is baffled, swearing it's impossible they circled back. Scarlet decides to break open the tunnel, and inside they find the word PAP scrawled on the wall. Papillon insists he's never been there, but no one believes him. Out of nowhere, a landline phone begins to ring. Papillon explains that Paris once had telephone lines running through the catacombs, but they were dismantled years ago. Then George finds something even stranger, an old piano identical to the one he had as a child. He recalls how he used to play a tune with his younger brother and how one key was broken. To his horror, this dusty piano has the exact same broken key. Suddenly, the phone rings again. Scarlet answers it. A man's voice asks why she won't speak to him. Scarlet demands to know who it is. That's when a strange man appears. It's Le Taupe, Papillon's friend who disappeared years ago. He warns them they shouldn't be there and offers to show them the way out. But seriously, how could they trust a guy who vanished for 2 years in these tunnels? And even worse, how has he survived all this time without food? It's obvious the man is in league with something sinister, so ignoring him would have been the best move. Unfortunately, they follow Le Taupe anyway, who leads them to a vertical shaft that Scarlet believes could be an exit. The group uses ropes to climb down, but of course, Benji messes things up again, slipping and tearing his hands open in the process. Scarlet patches him up as best as she can. Further in, they reach a silent corridor, eerily quiet, which should be impossible given the narrow walls surrounding them. Suddenly, a deafening roar echoes through, shaking the ground as their flashlights flicker out. In the darkness, they glimpse a demonic-looking boy in a striped blue shirt, something that deeply unsettles Zed. At the end of the corridor, they hit another dead end. Le Taupe shrugs, saying he thought this was the way out. George loses it and lunges at the strange man, but the others break up the fight. Scarlet then notices Egyptian inscriptions on the walls. She realizes it's a puzzle. They have to press the correct stone to reveal the exit, but pressing the wrong one will trigger a trap that collapses the ceiling. Using their knowledge of astronomy, she and George solve the riddle, and a secret chamber opens. Inside, they discover the body of a dead Templar knight, but even though he was buried centuries ago, his corpse is shockingly well preserved. Scarlet notices a submerged passage on the floor, and, believing it to be the stone's hiding place, dives in without hesitation. Luckily for her, nothing bad happens. Well, not yet. She actually finds the Philosopher's Stone. The problem is, Papillon's crew also enters the chamber and becomes mesmerized by a treasure hidden behind a gate. Papillon, Zed, and Sauxi foolishly tear down the barrier, triggering triggering a trap that causes the ceiling to collapse. Latope vanishes in the chaos, but worse, all of the group's food and water end up buried under the rubble. This is where I wonder, have Papillon and his gang never seen an Indiana Jones movie in their lives? Obviously, there was going to be a trap protecting the treasure. They could have just grabbed the coins and jewels that were outside the gate and walked away filthy rich. In other words, there was no reason whatsoever to knock the gate down, which is what activated the trap in the first place. Too bad, because Scarlet finds a drawing of a door on the ceiling, along with a Gnostic Star of David. She explains that what exists above must also exist below. In other words, if there's an exit above, there must also be one beneath their feet. If she counts dying as an exit, then yeah, she's completely right. Scarlet finds a hidden hatch, but before they descend, she scrapes the stone across Susie's wound, instantly healing her. With no other way out of the Devil's Catacomb, they descend even deeper, eventually coming across an inscription carved in Aramaic. George translates it, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." Scarlet immediately recognizes the line from Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, the infamous description of the entrance to hell itself. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't take another step. I'd go back, carefully clear the rocks, and look for another way out. Considering how old and fragile that stonework is, there might have been another passage waiting. But of course, they keep moving forward and stumble into another chamber that looks almost identical to the Templar Knights. Almost identical, because this time, the drawings on the walls are inverted, and a second knight lies there. Only this one's body is horribly decomposed. And that's where the group finds Latope again, completely unharmed by the collapse, but with devilish eyes, as if possessed. Suxi foolishly approaches him, only for Latope to grab her head and smash it against the stone floor. She might have survived if she had stayed back. By this point, it was pretty obvious that Latope had been dead for a long time, and that what they were seeing was his tormented spirit wandering this purgatory. If the group had ignored him and just moved on, most of them might have lived to tell the tale. But no, Latope vanishes, and Papillon begs Scarlet to use the stone to bring Susie back. She refuses, explaining that the stone can only prolong life in cases of illness or aging, but it doesn't bring the dead back. The group presses on and finds another vertical tunnel, suggesting they're retracing their steps, but with far more dread this time. They descend, hoping to find an exit, since they have no other option. Benji is the last one down, and he suddenly sees the ghost of a woman holding a baby. Startled, he loses his grip on the rope and falls to his death. Even though they mourn the cameraman, the survivors continue forward. But George is shaken when he sees a vision of his younger brother drowning in a submerged chamber. He tries to save him, but Scarlet insists it isn't real. The next unlucky one is Papillon. When he sees a burning car, he panics, insisting it wasn't his fault. Inside the car sits the same strange Frenchman who had told Scarlet to seek out Papillon at the club, clearly another ghost from Papillon's past. There's no time to react because Papillon is suddenly dragged by an invisible force and swallowed into the burning car, which somehow melts his pants and shoes in the process. A smart way to survive this place would have been to just keep moving. It's obvious the catacombs are exploiting their memories to break them down, and most of them end up dying when they stop to face these traumas. Ignoring the visions and pushing forward would have been the only sensible option. Scarlet, George, and Zed finally reach what can only be hell itself, where they see apparitions of spirits and demons. Out of nowhere, statues on the wall come alive and bite George's throat. Scarlet and Zed drag him away, and she desperately tries to heal him with the Philosopher's Stone, but this time it doesn't work. That's when she realizes the stone she grabbed was a fake. The real one must still be back in its original place. She asks Zed to protect George and sprints back through the tunnels. Along the way, she runs into one of the demonic statues and hilariously just slaps it across the forehead. Scarlet is almost at her destination, but now the tunnels are flooded with blood and lined with twisted faces. At last, she returns the stone and gazes into a golden mirror, realizing the true power of the Philosopher's Stone has been inside her all along. When Scarlet returns to George and Zed, she once again sees her father hanging himself as the catacombs try to weaponize her trauma against her. This time, instead of panicking, she apologizes for ignoring the call he made to her just before he took his own life. Miraculously, that makes her father's ghost vanish. Scarlet then heals George with a kiss. The bumbling trio is chased by demons until they're cornered in front of a dark pit. Scarlet lays it out for them. They must leap into the pit and confess their sins if they want to survive. George admits that he couldn't save his brother from drowning, while Zed confesses he has a child he never acknowledged and never supported. With that, they all jump into the abyss and, against all odds, survive. The problem is, the chamber they land in seems to have no exit, and Zed starts to lose it. That's when Scarlet notices a sewer grate in the ground and asks George to help push it open. Suddenly, they see Paris upside down. Scarlet, Zed, and George embrace, finally escaping the cursed catacombs once and for all. As Above, So Below was trashed by critics and didn't do much better with audiences. Me? I loved it, and I'll even say this. In my opinion, it's the best found footage movie I've ever seen. The pacing is fantastic, blending lost treasure adventure with pure horror. And since 90% of the film was actually shot in the Paris catacombs, the sense of claustrophobia is absolutely real and brilliantly executed. I just wish the third act had been fleshed out more. The whole reveal about the true Philosopher's Stone being inside Scarlet leaves a lot open for interpretation. Still, my rating for this movie is a solid 7.5. At the box office, the film was a hit, grossing $42 million against a budget of just $10 million. Without further ado, let's get to the kill count. In total, we had 6 kills, and the Golden Body Bag Award goes to Susie. Don't forget to like the video. I hope you had a great time, and see you on the next one.